Here we are again for another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is I, the cute-diggity dog, just jumping in here because episode 44 started out as one episode in its entirety. And we felt in the studio after listening to it that it would be good to split it up into two pieces. Why? Because it's a lot to take in. And really, it's really a two-part message, and it has to do with my journey, or the beginnings of my journey when it comes to autism in my marriage. So give it a listen, and I hope that it helps you, or if you have a family member or a friend with autism in their life, that it helps them, because my goodness, it has been quite the learning curve when it comes to autism and what it's about. So enjoy episode 44, Autism, Marriage, and Abandonment, part 1. Much love to you, peeps. Roll Tide. In this episode of Man vs. Marriage, it is some more live coaching, and the content is about the Q dog. Why are your problems a burden on other people? Or who told you that?
Good question.
The podcast.
How good do you want your life to be?
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible.
This is Man vs. Marriage.
The podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It is I, your humble servant, the Q dog.
And Coach Rita.
Coach Rita's in the house, and we want to dive right in to today's content. But before we do that, don't forget about our email address, which is coach@manvsmarriagepodcast.com. And that's V like victory, S like success. It's not the word spelled out, which I guess could have been fine since the email address is about 85 miles long in the first place. But once it's in and once it's there, it's one and done, and then we're just on the lifeline. So reach out to us. Let us know what you think. Let us know what questions you have. If you want to send questions and you do not want your name spoken on the air, we will respect that. We have a badge of honor that says, hey, put it out there. We'll call you a listener. We won't tell you by name. But if you're bold enough to put your name and, your problems out there and we can help solve them, someday we'll have you on the show so you can talk about it for other people. Okay? Great. All right, Coach Rita. A couple of the things I want to get in on this conversation, but I want you to take the reins and ride this pony.
Well, I just know when we were doing the episodes, I think it was like 37, 38, 39, in those episodes, what had came out in our conversation is in regards to asking for help. And, you expressed that asking for help was more of a failure than more beneficial. And through that, you kept saying and repeating you didn't want to be a burden. You didn't want to put your burdens on other people. You didn't want other people to feel as though that you're a burden. So my questions to you was like, well, okay, so like, who told you that? Like, why is it that you think when you're going through something that you're not allowed to share it? Like, you're not allowed to express it. You're not allowed to be vulnerable. You're not allowed to say, hey, I'm thrown in the white towel because I'm going through whatever it may be, because it's burdensome to everybody around you. Mm-hmm. So that was, just a huge question to you is, why is it that you feel that way? Like, where did that come in? Who told you that? Like, what story are you, there's so many questions, like, what story are you telling yourself to believe that you're that burden? So if you believe that you are, what have you done all your life to mask that? Like, what things did you do to put on yourself so that you didn't become the burden to others?
Mm.
So it's a lot of diving in deep to your own personal dialogue, what goes on when something comes up, circumstances come up, issues come up. What do you do with that? Like, what do you do with those things? Does your mind instantly go to, this is a burden, I'm just going to keep it within, I'm just going to keep it to myself, I don't want to put anybody else out on what it is that I'm going through? I mean, what is the inner dialogue that's going on in your mind when these things arise? Or why do you feel you're a burden? Where did you learn that? That's a whole bunch of questions I just asked you.
Yeah. And I'm
Your mind's spinning, I could see.
it's processing, like when you tell the computer to do something and it gets that little window, that little hourglass that pops up.
Right.
As you ask the questions, I just try to digest them. I don't know. I do not understand, did not understand exactly where that came from. And all I did was find one place in all the time that I spent thinking of it. And I was trying to give the educated answer, I guess, of in the moment of what I thought it was, because I'm so accommodating. I'm overly accommodating. Is it tied to that? And really, I did not know. And I don't know where the story came from. I could just point to maybe the tip of the iceberg of what it was, because naturally I thought, well, I'm sure this is going to be about my parents getting divorced and all this. And maybe at some point, that's in the mix. But here, I just put a lot of thought into why don't I want to talk to people about problems? What the crap is that all about?
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of went to this, we had Hunter, and that's one kid, and that's no problem. And things in your family just kind of move on as normal. Holidays move on as normal. It's one baby. It's this, it's, hey, good, bring the baby. And then after having, you have triplets. And then it's like, oh, okay. Now where does that leave you with birthdays and holidays and parties and family gatherings? And there's a lot of unspoken struggles that come along with having multiples.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when they have health issues. One of the glaring problems is, who can you find to babysit so you can get your wife out of the house?
Right.
And then you have, another child, and there was so much controversy over Jeannie and I having another kid on my side of the family.
Uh-huh.
It was weird. It was weird because, you start to hear, I can't even remember some of the talk, but I know that I was lectured a couple of times by a few people. They're like, you're not being responsible, and, what are you going to do about these kids? And then, there's family members that'll see one of your child rocking and say, oh, well, that's because they don't get the right attention they need. They're rocking for this reason or that reason, and, you're basically being a terrible parent. That's why your kid's over there rocking. Nobody stops to think about, autism or disabilities. Maybe they're just trying to help. Who really knows? So now you have 5 kids, and it really starts to stress out where everybody meets and how it affects people on the holiday, and where are we going to have this? And now you're just too much. Now at 5 kids, you're just too much. This is too much for so-and-so. We can't do it. We can't meet for Thanksgiving anymore. There's not enough room. So it's like, okay, well, let's meet at my house. It's like a 987 square foot house. Let's meet at my house. I don't care. You can inconvenience me. No, you do it one time and people are complaining, and then it's like, well, we're not going to do Christmas together anymore because of this. And it's my family's growing, and the more my family grows, the less I start to see of my other family, because it's just too much. You're just too much. And you have kids that have autism, and a kid don't have control over their self anyway. They're learning all that.
Right.
But then that's exacerbated, to use a $3 word, and the kid is like unruly, and it's like, oh, well, if, you have to spank the kid at this time, or, you have to discipline the kid at this time, or, what are you not doing as a parent to get your kid under control? And the more children you have, the less people show up at the hospital. And then you just stop seeing people, and people stop coming around, and people stop coming to your birthday parties, and people stop coming to dinner at your place. And then when it's Halloween, it's like, oh, it's just too much. And then when they're having a birthday party, you don't get invites anymore. You show up 30 minutes late to a party, and everybody's just dogging on you because you're 30 minutes late. You have the drinks, you have the ice. You're 30 minutes late when that's what's supposed to be there first. They have no earthly idea what it takes to get 5 people under 5 years old ready. And some of those kids are just, they're wild because they're not even comfortable in their own skin.
Right.
Nobody knows what you suffer through mentally.
Right.
Feeling like a failing parent. Because your 5-year-old or your 3-year-old won't let you put a dress on. It's the wrong color. Or when your kid bites the hell out of you and you're bleeding because it's the wrong shirt. And they don't have control over that stuff,
right.
But then you just become an outsider because people can't handle you anymore. I mean, the only, even at church, and it's like, hey, we're not equipped to deal with this problem. So this particular child can't come in the nursery anymore. They can't come in the children's church anymore unless one or both of you are in there. And I get that. It's hard. There's no playbook for that. But it starts to mount where people start to push you away because you're hard to deal with, or you upset their peace or their zen or their routine. And it's like you start to feel like you're a burden on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Because you do demand a lot of resources when your child has a grand mal seizure and has to be rushed to the hospital and airlifted to another hospital and to have brain surgery. And you just start to feel like you're a burden on anybody you come into contact with, because you do find babysitters and then they get burnt out and they don't return your calls anymore, or they have life or they graduate high school and they're moving on, and that's what you want from anyway. But and it's not just, our church on Avenue K, it's the other church we were going to. It's like, your kid's unruly, your kid's this, your kid is that. And, why don't you go watch these discipline videos, to help your kid. And then, your kids get sexually abused and they just try to keep it under the carpet or, keep it a controlled conversation. And, they don't want that problem to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a litany of problems with, starting with the triplets where people started keeping us at a distance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people don't have to tell you anything to create a story in your head. People's actions start to give you a story.
Right.
And then people will lecture you when it comes to Christmas time. Well, we're just going to buy gifts for these kids because, we don't have a lot of help, and we need to, we don't want to, spend a lot of money here and there. I mean, it's like $1 coloring book for a 2-year-old. It's $1. What are you talking about? So I just went and bought Christmas gifts for their kids anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I was struggling. I mean, you don't want to see what my bank account looked like. I was struggling. And I think one of the most painful things was saying, you're too much for somebody, so we just can't do holidays all together anymore. And that our family always did holidays together.
Mm-hmm.
They always did them together, no matter what.
Right.
Until us. And then we were just too much.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the incentive to tell people you got problems? Well, it's your own fault. If you would have pulled out, you wouldn't have had all these kids.
God.
Right? I mean, it's like, how could I sit here and complain about being too much? But nobody's ever too much for me. Ever.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what your family has or what they're going through. Come to us. Come to the Moran household. We'll overdo it, but we'll shower you in love. I had a friend come to my house, and we were supposed to meet about some things. He was there, he was there early. He wanted to stay at my house. I said, look, dude, there's a lot going on here. You're free to stay here if you want, but there's a lot going on here.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm game if you're game. Came in, he sat down. I was watching the Alabama game. He was there early. He drove in from out of state. We were supposed to, it's like a 5-hour drive one way. We're supposed to meet with my brother. And I'm watching the game, and the kids are, coming up. Hey, hey, hey. It's like, hey, hey, hey. They're being little kids that are 3 and 4 and 5 years old. And there's 3 of them at one time. And it's like, hey, I jokingly say, hey, let the guy breathe. But I'm watching football. I'm an Alabama football movie.
Right.
Eventually he stands up. He goes, look, dude, I don't need to, I'm not like saying I need to rent carpet or anything, but I'm going to go back home. Gets in his truck and he drives away. And I'm like, what do you do with that? What do you do with that when, it's a friend of yours?
Right.
And you're supposed to go meet for, a business arrangement. And now your little kids are just too much for them when they're just being little kids. They're just being little kids. Could I have done something more? I don't know. They hadn't seen an iPhone. They were excited. I mean, we're a lot. I know. They have my personality, a lot of them. It's like, but there's just examples that I could maybe continue to go through that are just that, where you're just too much. Well, we can't have everybody, but you could come without Jeannie and bring a couple of these kids. What?
Right.
Are you serious right now? This is my family. So I think, maybe that's the tip of the iceberg that's there to say, why do I feel like my problems are a burden on people? I feel like my family is, and people abandon you
Mm-hmm.
when you don't fit into their mold. And that's painful. That's heartbreaking.
Right. Especially when it's family.
I mean, why should my wife have to tell my grandma on her deathbed that we're done having kids to make her feel better before she passes away? Why? You know, it's like, I don't get those things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my mindset is it's your family, you decide. You know, you try to plead your case. It's like one day out of the year, guys. It's once. Unless we do Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's twice. It's 2 times a year.
Right.
You can't handle us 2 times in a year? I don't get that. That's not me. I don't understand. And what do you tell your freaking kids when people don't show up? So I think there's something there about if I share my problems with people, they're going to abandon me.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to leave. Who else do I have now, though? One thing I can say about, you and Bill and Christmas is I thought you were crazy to open your home up to have us come over. You're my family by marriage, but I don't remember a Christmas where it's like, come be with us. Your house is full of people.
Mm-hmm.
And all those Christmas story trinkets that you have, the whole city is out there. And you're like, it's like, come here. Come to my house for Christmas. It's like, they don't know what they're getting themselves into. Maybe they don't understand. We have Kirsten. Well, it's like, she's hard, but she's still a person too.
Yep.
She still has feelings too. So that's just a hell of a run to feel abandoned,
Right.
To feel like you're just too much for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I get it, but 2 days a year?
Right.
What's up with that? What's up with I can't handle you for 2 days a year? You got like 363 other days that you don't have to inconvenience yourself or your life.
Right.
And I guess there's the other side of the discussion of, well, why do you even want to be around them if they don't want you around? So these are people I say that I love and people that say they love me. My grandpa, at least to my face, he's always told me, I don't have a problem with it. We go and play dice at his house now,
Mm-hmm.
and Kirsten doesn't go in because it's just more calm for her to sit and watch, a video. We take her in every once in a while.
Right.
But, there's 6 people around the table and the conversations are loud and crazy. And I find myself apologizing constantly when we're leaving. If we're too much, Grandpa, I understand. I'm sorry, Grandpa, we're too much. I know, we're loud. And he's like, nope, not for me. I love it, son.
Mm-hmm.
So if that ain't the source of it, that has to do with it.
Big time. And I think you look at the outcome and you're looking at the outcome of it, is there's a place in you that is best to avoid any more hurt, rejection, any more of those feelings that you don't want to have to feel of, if I put things out there, people are going to leave. So instead of putting things out there, it's easy just to retreat and just not share it, because you know, based on the history, based on the past, based on the way people have responded, the outcome is always they will leave. So in your eyes and in how you see it, having kids, having more kids, some more kids and some more kids is burdensome. And you're not going to put the burden on people because you've lost so many people in that journey of life that you and Jeannie have, embarked on. So ultimately it's kind of like, at the end of the day, this is what you're trying to avoid. I'm not saying anything, like, I totally understand, because I've heard a lot of what you're saying. Because of course we're come from, I hear what family says, and after a while, it's just kind of like, no, actually, one of their daughters is, she has autism. And there's not a lot of understanding or compassion when it comes to that. And sometimes I think you have to rule those people out, because you're trying to get them to understand something that they're not going to grasp. And instead of causing heartache towards yourself, you run it. I'm not even in it, and I see it, and I've witnessed it. And for the lack of a better words, it's a lot of ignorance on their part. Instead of educating themselves, instead of trying to understand this thing called autism. I don't understand it all. However, I know Kiki, she is a human being. She is this bright child that I see all the time. Like, how can you reject that? So what if she doesn't do what you think she should do as a child? She can't. So why can't you just accept her as she is? Bill and I get, like, Bill and I we just get a kick out of her, because her timing is impeccable when she says things and does things.
Yeah. It's weird.
It is weird. And you just embrace it. And you come to find out in life that there's just a lot of times people just can't embrace other people's life, chaos, whatever you want to call it. They're incapable of embracing someone else's normal because it's not their normal.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people are ignorant when it comes to autism, because they really do believe it's a behavioral issue, and that's all that it is. And it's the lack of the parents and thereof, and, you're trying your whole, everything within you to try to give them understanding. And sometimes they're just not going to get it.
Yeah.
And you're just spinning your wheels, trying to get them to get it of an acceptance. Because really, that's all that you're wanting. It's just that acceptance. This is my family. Right, wrong, or indifferent, this is my family. Mm-hmm. And why can't you just embrace that for what it is? It sucks, but, some people just can't. It doesn't make it right, and it doesn't make it wrong, and it doesn't make it easy. But yeah, I can totally see the burden that you carry, the burden that you walk around with. And that's not an easy thing to carry. So how is it that we work through it to release it, that it's not this burden? How do we change that story of how people responded to you has dictated to you how it is that you're going to live a life of being a burden? How do we flip that?
The podcast. How good do you want your life to be?
You gotta live on purpose, for a purpose.
It's truly about becoming the best version of yourself that's possible. This is Man vs. Marriage, the podcast.